Hi everyone, welcome back to Short Story Time. I have another story here that I wrote myself. It's called Oak Hollow, and let's just get right into it, huh? The highway stretched ahead, a dark concrete ribbon unraveling beneath the glow of his headlights. Nate had been driving for hours, his fingers stiff against the steering wheel, almost as stiff as his back and as sore as his eyes. He told himself he was just trying to clear his head. Driving for no other reason, though, tends to create an even more cluttered mind. His father had died 3 weeks ago, a man he barely knew in the last years of his life. Is it strange that I can't remember his voice, he thought. They hadn't spoken in years, not because of some big dramatic fight, just the slow unraveling of connection like a rope fraying over time until one day there was nothing left to hold it. Now his father was gone, and so was the chance to ever fix it. Nate turned up the radio, but nothing could drown out that kind of regret. Then he saw an exit sign, the first exit sign he'd seen in miles. Oak Hollow, 1 mile. His grip on the wheel tightened. Oak Hollow. He'd driven this stretch of highway thousands of times, and while this name rang a bell, admittedly a rather dull, everywhere America kind of name, he'd never noticed this little town or sign before. Something compelled him. Before he could talk himself out of it, he flicked the turn signal and took the exit. A place half forgotten, or more like 3/4 forgotten. Oak Hollow was the typical American small town, seemingly untouched by time. Old brick storefronts, even a meandering brick road for its main street. A single gas station, a diner with a neon sign buzzing weakly against the night. The streets were empty, but not completely abandoned. The cars, though, the models seemed to stretch from the 1940s to the present, though only a few were scattered about. Nate couldn't help fight back a feeling that this town was waiting for something. More people, probably, he said out loud. He pulled into a small parking stall right in front of Maggie's diner. His stomach twisted as he looked up at the diner's sign. His mother's name had been Maggie. Coincidence, he told himself. But the feeling in his gut said otherwise. He slowly walked inside. The bell over the door jingled. It smelled like coffee and hash browns and maple syrup. Mornings at Grandma and Grandpa's. A song played low from an unseen jukebox, his dad's favorite song. At the counter, a waitress stood wiping down a coffee cup. She was older, with soft eyes and the kind of face that looked like it had seen everything, most of it right here in this little diner. When she glanced up, her breath caught for just a second. Nate noticed the look. It was one of recognition, but that wasn't possible, right? "You made it," she said. Nate hesitated. "Yeah, made it where?" The waitress didn't answer. As Nate found a stool and set his elbows on the counter, she reached down and pulled out an old photograph. She slid it toward him. His heart stopped. It was a picture of a boy no older than 6, grinning, gap-toothed, wild hair sticking up in every direction, and kneeling beside him with a hand on his shoulder was his father. Behind the two, clear as day, the Maggie's Diner sign. Nate's fingers trembled as he picked it up. His father had never been the sentimental type, never took him anywhere but baseball practice, never even let him order dessert. And yet, the memory came. The taste of grilled cheese melted just right, his father's laugh softer than usual, his song on the jukebox. A warm summer afternoon, a diner, a moment of closeness he'd long since forgotten. He looked up. What is this? This isn't real." The waitress gave him a small, sad smile. "It was," she said. His throat felt tight. "But this town, this diner, it's not supposed to be here, is it?" The waitress hesitated, then she said softly, "Oak Hollow is, well, it shows up for those who need it." He exhaled sharply. "And if I leave?" The jukebox crackled, the neon sign outside flickered. "Then we disappear," she said. The weight of it settled on him, this place. It wasn't a town. A fragment of something unfinished, something waiting for him to come back to, but not to stay forever. The waitress offered him some coffee. "You could stay a while," she said. He thought about it, the warmth of the diner, the echoes of the past, the feeling of almost remembering something important. He looked at the photo again, his little face smiling next to his dad's big grin. "I remember." The waitress looked at him, softly smiled, and simply nodded. He stared at it for a bit longer, but slowly a contented deep breath released from his lungs. This wasn't where he belonged, really. Not forever, anyway. He set the photograph down gently. "I think I should leave, but..." She just nodded again. "I know." He looked at her, then gazed around him, at this place, this foreign yet familiar place. He stood and turned toward the door, but just as he was about to step outside, she spoke again, her voice soft as the night air. "You don't have to forget, you know." Nate looked back. "Forgetting and letting go," she said, "they're not the same thing." Something in his chest eased, just a little. He nodded, smiled, for what felt like the first time in months. He stepped out into the night. The town was already fading, the street lamps dimmed, the gas station at the corner blurred at the edges, seemingly dissolving into the darkness. And then just like that, he was back on the highway. No exit, no town, just the empty road stretching out ahead of him. He looked down at the passenger seat. The photograph was there. Nate exhaled a slow, steady breath. Then he turned on the radio, and for the first time in a long time, he didn't feel lost. So there you go. There's Oak Hollow. I would love to know what you think and what comments you have. We are going to be opening up submissions so that ISA members can submit their own short stories, so I can be reading yours and creating these fun little videos. So I hope you had fun, and there'll be more to come. I'll see you soon.